This time, it's not just a simple weapon replica. And no, it's not even about 90s games. So what is today's topic? I've been carefully avoiding Warhammer universe for decades. I've always known I'd love it, but I also knew I shouldn't dive in because it's one of those bottomless fandom rabbit holes. I've been watching from a distance, knowing that the day would eventually come. The day when the books and the games, and what's especially important to me, the painting would all come crashing down on me. This careful distance was disrupted by Saber Interactive by releasing Space Marine 2. With its old-school combat system, massive levels and insanely atmospheric campaign, it absolutely broke down my defenses. And honestly, I don't regret a thing. Since then, I've jumped into amazing titles like the boomer shooter Bolt Gun and the Dawn of War series. After years of working on big-scale props and replicas, I even dipped my toes into miniature painting. Just as I had to experiment with countless new techniques when making life-size weapon replicas, here too a whole new world opened up before me. So how does this all fit into the channel? Let's start from the beginning, for anyone who's new to Warhammer 40,000. Although the backbone of the Empire's army is made up of ordinary humans, billions of soldiers pouring from countless worlds, serious matters demand serious firepower. These are the Adeptus Astartes, or more commonly known as the Space Marines. These genetically enhanced warriors are bigger, stronger, faster and tougher than any human could ever hope to be. Combined with the legendary armor, they are basically walking tanks. To regular soldiers, they like avenging angels, so their effect on morale is just as significant as their sheer military value. But what kind of weapon suits such a war machine? The standard issue weapon of the Astartes is the bolter. Such a soldier deserves a weapon of overwhelming power, and that perfectly describes the capabilities of the bolter. Don't be fooled by its simple blocky appearance. These weapons are real instruments of destruction. A standard bolter round is a 75 caliber rocket-propelled projectile ending in a delayed detonation warhead. This warhead deals maximum devastation inside the target after impact. Bolters are made in many sizes and variants. The smallest of these is the bolt pistol. And that's what I want to build. Let's get to it. Although on this channel I usually present realistic weapon replicas, I'm going to deviate a bit this time. Building just a bolt pistol would be too short for a video, so why not turn it into a diorama? Step 1. The weapon selection. I picked a rare variant of the pistol, one that high-ranking officers of the Astra Militarum might carry. That way, I'd have a pistol that would also fit on my own hand. Step 2. The diorama. I wanted to include Demetrian Titus, the protagonist from the Space Marine games, since he's the reason I got into this in the first place. A few months ago I had begun a small Titus statue, but left it unfinished. It's perfect for this diorama. Then I decided to add the Tyrannid, but without overcrowding the build. So the idea became Titus standing tall with the dead or dying Tyrannid at his feet, half sunken into the ground. The weapon model itself wasn't made by me, it was printed to test a 3D printer years ago with questionable results. But hey, let's see what we can do with it. For contrast, I wanted the diorama to pop against the gun's dark colors. So I wanted the Tyrannid lying in a pool of brighter green toxic sludge, and for that I had to make space for a barrel. After setting it up and some broken stone tiles for Titus to stand on, I textured the foam to look like worn stone. Then I built up the Tyrannid section, filled in the terrain and surrounded it with muddy ground to hold the toxic goo. And then I made the most rookie mistake. I used the wrong primer and ended up melting the stone texture. The funny part, it actually looked kinda cool, so I rolled with it. Once the base was painted, I moved on to the barrel. After applying the grey base coat, I worked on the corroded surface. First a brown wash to break up the monotone, then layer by layer of rust tones painted by hand. With 5 overlapping colors, the barrel finally took shape. With that done, it was time to tackle the pistol itself. To make it battle-worn, I carved some scratches and bullet marks with a soldering iron, highlighted them with steel paint, and dirtied everything up. I went heavy on the edge highlights since the weapon's colors aren't very contrasting. Heavier weathering can improve the overall look. Next step is to dirty it up. Normally I'd just add black or weapon matching grime, but here I wanted more variety in the otherwise dark palette. I added brown, earthy grime and rusty streaks. It was also time for some decorations. On one side, a golden aquila symbolizing our unwavering loyalty to the Emperor. On the other side, I made a purity seal. That seal commemorates a LAN party that was entirely dedicated to the service of the God Emperor. The seal itself got its antioxidants and flavonoids in a tea bath, which conveniently gave it a more aged appearance. A little scorching with a soldering iron made it finally ready for the weapon. Speaking of hot iron, you know the effect where steel discolors from heat. I wanted that look on the barrel. It took several thin layers of tinted paint, and finally some dirt tied it visually to the rest of the gun. Back to the diorama. It was time to pour the spilled chemicals and place the Tyrannid on the scene. The epoxy I had planned wasn't suitable, so I had to use a 2-part alternative, which I really wanted to avoid. With very little working time, mixing, pouring and placing, everything was a challenge, but I managed. The Tyrannid stood out too much, so I blended its color and tones with the rest of the diorama and gave it a heavy weathering pass. Now for the star of the show. I have started this statue month back, but only with some basic colors and zenithal highlights. This time I went with the brush for the real details. The process is all about layering. What starts out as bright red or white gets worn down to burgundy or bone. Where airbrushing had laid only a gentle light and shadow gradients, I finished the real effect with a brush. Instead of flat colors, surfaces now reflected light. Some areas gets lighter and others darker. With 4 or 5 carefully blended layers, the transitions became smooth and natural. Highlights along the edges and tiny painted scratches added even more depth. The opposite approach was needed for panel lining. Thin grooves looks best in black, while seams were painted with darker shades of the base color. I had to hand paint the ultramarine chapter insignias, which is always fun to do. With these done, I only had to attach the arms and the head. Although I personally prefer the helmeted look for this scene, I also made a head with Titus' face exposed. Both got magnetized, so it's easy to swap them out anytime. And now for the final step, assembling the diorama. Once the main figure was placed on the top of the weapon, I blended him into the environment as well. I dirtied the armor with mud, added some blood and chemical splatters, and weathered the boots heavily with earthy pigments, since that's the part realistically gets the dirtiest. And finally, I think we're done. Let's take a look at the finished result all together. If you enjoy this build, please give it a like, it's already a big help for the channel. And if you'd like to hear about my future builds, you can choose to subscribe as well. I'm always open to project ideas. Some of the builds I'm working on right now came straight from your comments. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can buy me a coffee or join my Patreon. A warm welcome to my newest patron, and thanks to all those coffees that fuel this project. They hit just as hard as a well-aimed bolter round to an unsuspecting orc's head. That's it for today. See you soon in the next video.